My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday call. I had a great conversation with the people that called in beforehand. So we are ready to rock. And today's topic is how to prioritize your daily activities or your business activities so we can get paid. And that's a big, big piece to whatever we do in our business is we've got to know what to do on a daily basis. So I'm kind of break that down a little bit and get some specific around things and even just get you into the place where we can keep you moving, keep that action moving, because that's the biggest part that we need. Before we get rolling, a couple important notes that you want to know to help you out as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. As you may know, my website, is sellingcoaching.com, and I have all my live Tuesday calls recorded, so you can check that out on my website in my university, sellingcoaching.com. Also on my website, right on the homepage, I have a great resource for you, the Ultimate Startup Guide for Coaches. So you want to check that out. It's a great audio and resource guide. I brought you with my dog, of course, but I don't give it away or give him away. But that's a great resource for you as well. And then something I just launched not too long ago, last week, was my new group program. It's helping coaches kind of convert their leads into paying clients. I call it live sales conversations. It's opportunity to you come to a live group meeting, and we're able to take the leads, and I'm able to actually tell you how do you follow up with them? What do you say? What do you do? And so that's a really cool part right there. And I love those live conversations because it leads to you actually getting paid clients. And then the best part is it's learning how to do it for yourself as well. So with that being said, I am available also not only in group, but for one-on-one mentoring as well. And if it's something where you need some of that guidance, being proactive, or maybe you've been doing it a little while and you're a little frustrated, hey, that's what I'm here for. Just go to the Work With Me page at sellingcoaching.com. There's a form at the bottom. You can fill that out. And then we can create a relaxed conversation from there and see where we go. With that being said, it's time to roll on. And today's conversation is about how do we prioritize our daily activities, and what are those daily activities that we've got to do and prioritize in order to get paid in our business. And where I want to start off with this whole thing is recognizing this, and this came from a question that one of the people that asked when they called in was, hey, you know what? Let's say we know these activities already, and this is like, I'll start with this, right? Let's say we know what these activities are already. You know, there are going to be days where we just don't want to do it, right? There's going to be days where we just want to do it. And the most challenging part of entrepreneurship, I would say, is the simple fact that we're alone. You know, you're a solopreneur, you're by yourself, you're at home most likely, and there's no one watching you. There's no one saying, hey, when are you going to get that done? When are you going to get that to me? And a lot of the activities that are revenue producing, that actually get us paid, how about this? I would say all of them really typically are the most uncomfortable for entrepreneurs. It doesn't mean they have to be uncomfortable forever, and the hope is that we get better and better at them, because of course everything leads back to selling, that's why I'm selling coaching, is to help coaches transition to a full-time business, right? That's the biggest aspect of it, but it's having the conversations with people. You know, and it's putting ourselves out there, whether it's live events like this, whether it's virtual events, face-to-face events, it's having conversations with people, it's networking, right? And it's those types of activities we'll go into a little bit more later, but those are typically the most challenging for us entrepreneurs, especially as we start off with. And if some of those you don't find challenging, that's fantastic, right? Just go with it. But either way, there's going to be the moments where either you're just procrastinating because you're scared, maybe you know what to do, but you're not quite sure how to approach it, what to say, or you're just, another piece is, you know, especially as we get around the holidays or busy season, summer, different times of the year where there's, let's say, other desirable activities that are perceived to be more pleasurable than painful, like it's summertime and you can go outside in the beautiful sun, or if you like to ski, or you fill in the blank, you just got to do some stuff around the house, right? And you're there and you're alone. It's very easy to distract yourself from activities that otherwise you would find uncomfortable. And I wish I could give you the, oh my God, here's the magic formula, right? To getting past that, etc. And to develop that discipline so you can have the consistency. The best thing I can give you around that is one thing with our business that I've learned over the years is the reason why I always preach consistency with these activities is because when we start to fall off, and even after a while, like I've been doing this since 2004, and when you're starting off especially, you don't have any momentum, right? You have zero momentum. You most likely have very few, if any, relevant contacts. And what happens is you start to turn this engine, we need to develop an audience. We need to grow an audience, find an audience, and then nurture that audience over time. And so the reality is we don't have any momentum. So we got to get that train going, so to speak. And it's really long and slow and hard to get it going. But once we get it going, and if we stop a little bit, we have some momentum. But entrepreneurship, your leads can dry up pretty quick sometimes. And like I said, I've been doing this a while. I've got some good things going. But if I let off the gas, 2 or 3 weeks later, I can feel the effects of that lull. And it's never right away that you feel the effects. And usually you let off the gas because maybe you got too busy, maybe you got too much going on, maybe you fill in the blank, whatever the reason is. But it's just like eating a lot of food one weekend. It's like, well, you don't feel fat the next day. You might feel not great, but it's like all of a sudden 2 or 3 days later, you're like, oh, you really feel the effects of that, right? Or 2 or 3 weeks later, you really start to feel the effects of consistently starting to eat poorly, et cetera, or stopping an exercise program. As a kind of a comparison for you. So the biggest thing about that is I mean, at least if you're doing it a while, you can cut yourself a little slack. But the challenge is when those lulls come, it can feel like everything's dead. It can feel like no one's there at all. And the reality is, especially if you guys have noticed online, it's not very easy to get participation and comments and feedback from people. It doesn't mean that you can't get them and won't get them, but even in groups, let's say like on Facebook or social platforms where people have large followings, hundreds of thousands of followers or people in a group as an example, and they're getting 25, 30 comments, etc., and it feels like, oh my God, look at all this interaction they're getting. Well, if you look at the size, 100,000, 200,000, maybe even more. I saw a group the other day and 500,000 people, I think it was, in the group, and they had a post and it had like 50, 60 comments. But like percentage-wise, I didn't do the math in my head here, but it's a very small percentage comparatively to the number and the size of the group. So if you take that same percentage, like a percent or a 0.5%, and you take it to your group of 100 people. If you're getting, maybe one comment or a like, then that's probably right on par, but we always want more than that. So the biggest thing is with that is being able to mentally work through that and we've just got to know that this is our business and we've got to be consistent with it. And the way I work through those things is like with my Live Tuesday call, that's the impetus for me to get going, because the reason I set that event up, the reason I have my emails and my email marketing and my social media marketing structured around that's when I work with people one-on-one, that's what I help them with, is getting that structure set up for them specifically, the whole marketing system, specific to them, because when you have something like that, that keeps you going. And even if you've got a small database to no database, once you start putting it out there, having the accountability of, hey, these people are calling in, right? So all the people that have called in today's call, we got what, 7, 8, 9, I don't know what the final number is, right? Let's call, for the sake of conversation, let's call it 10 people, right? And then we've got people that are going to be listening to the call recording, right? So it's not like the end of the world. Oh my God, if Jeff doesn't have his Tuesday call, right? But people are expecting it, people are wanting it, and that's what I want you to be able to build up in your business, is that they're wanting that. And if they're fans of yours and you have a schedule that you're putting them on, what happens is they begin to come accustomed to that. And that alone can be your accountability in an otherwise very empty world, if you will, being alone as an entrepreneur. So that's the best I have for you there in terms of, how do we do it anyways once we know what to do? And so let's move on to taking a look at, what are the activities? And if I were going to sum this up, and this came also from someone that called in today, is, Jeff, what's the number one activity? If you were going to talk to, any specific situation, right, for an entrepreneur coming in, I'm thinking as a coach, and you're coming into this, and I don't care where you are, and if you were like, what's that number one activity that we need to do beyond anything else? And I would say, without giving it too much thought, I would say by far that number one activity is creating conversations with people on a daily basis. And creating conversations with people on a daily basis can happen a multitude of ways. One way I do it, as I just kind of as I spoke about there, as with my live event each week, right? So I've got that event, and as a result of that, I've got people coming into the call, like the people that came in today, right? I've got people that when I create events and or send my emails and do other stuff online to promote that, get that out there, they might like, they might react, they might comment. When I get the recording out there, right, what that does is that stirs up reactions. I got a comment today from YouTube from somebody who listened to one of my calls that was, I don't know, it's probably a couple of years old at this point, right? And it's just like, hey, great job, or hey, this really helped me out. I forget exactly what it said. So of course, I went back to the person and say, hey, great to hear this. I'm great to hear that you loved it. Tell me a little bit more about your business, right? So that's the number one activity, is creating those conversations. And when we create conversations with people, we can start to learn more about what it is that they've got going on in their world. And then we can start to determine from that conversation how we could help them. And I always think about it like this, like, how do I help people? I mean, I don't care if I'm at a networking event, let's say, and I'm talking to somebody, if I can help them because they need snow tires, right? And I have a good referral, like, oh, I've got a great guy, or I've got a great place you can go, then I'm going to refer them, to something like that. So that, when I think about helping somebody, it's not just like, oh, and they're going to hire me as their coach, or, oh, maybe I can get them as for a seminar, right? I just want to try and connect with them and help them however I can, wherever that leads to. Of course, I want to understand what's going on in their world and how it might pertain to my business and how I could help them in that way. But helping people, no matter how it is, that's our way in our connection with them. And that's why I give that example of like, okay, it's snow tires, and it just comes as a result of the conversation and where it happens, especially when you're out and about. You can interact with people, right? So that number one activity is that interaction with people. Because if we think about it, I'll tie it back to, when we're talking about prioritizing our daily activities, and there's a lot of stuff we can do, but our number one objective in our business, if we're talking about the number one thing we can do, the number one objective in our business is to build an audience. Right? We've got to build an audience. Without people, you have nothing. That's it. You want to get paid, you need people, right? You can have all the best programs in the world, whether it's coaching or downloadable products or a book or you name, however you want to monetize it. You can't monetize anything until you have people. So our number one business activity is getting people. And how do we get people? We get our word out there, right? And through that word that we get out there, we create interactions, getting to events, networking events. Obviously, it makes it a whole lot easier, that whole marketing piece, when we know who we help with what specifically, right? That's our headline, as I like to call it. It's going into that area of a niche. But the point is that we want to be, in order to build an audience, we've got to get ourselves out there. So let me pull this together when we talk about prioritizing our daily activities. Let me break it down into categories here, and we're just going to do 4 categories. And those of you that are students of mine have probably heard me talk about these 4 categories, but I'm going to give these 4 categories, and then I'm going to go into each one of them a little bit so you can start to understand, what's the most important piece of each one of these, and then how do we, and this will lead to helping you prioritize what it is that you're doing, during your day. So let me start off with the actual 4 categories. And that would be, and I'm going to do them in order of importance. And the first few are, how about this? They're equally important. So the first one are our marketing activities. The second one is our following up activities, our follow-up activities. The third one are client activities. And the fourth one is our admin activities, right? So these are our 4 activities. Now, before I go into breaking those down a little bit more so you can really start to figure where you can prioritize these, and maybe even talking about like time allocations, general time allocations that I can start to give you, if that will help you there as well. Before you start figuring out like, oh, okay, what are each of these activities and when do I do them, you've got to go back to your calendar And those students of mine know I'm a big advocate of really having some business hours. Just like a job, you work 9 to 5. What are your business hours each and every day? It doesn't mean that as an entrepreneur, depending on when you do this, especially if you've got a job still, they might be a little bit flexible, meaning, you're coming home from an 8-hour day at a job, what's going on that night? Well, you still got kids, you still got family, you still got a spouse, maybe, I don't know what's going on in your world, but you can't just ignore all that stuff too, come home from work and then just work, another 6 hours in your office. But it's having a little bit of flex in that. But at the start of every day, I like to say you've got to finish your day before you start it, meaning you've got to know what's in front of you that day in terms of your schedule. When are you working today? What are your office hours today? So it's a Tuesday for me today. So today I'm in my office from 11 to 3. It's a shorter day for me. I always have my workouts in the morning, shower, come into my office, 3 o'clock, I'm done. I go pick my son up for school. It's my night with my son. It's awesome. It's just, so that's why it's a shorter day for me. But I always know on a Tuesday, it's from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. Those are my hours, right? It's only 4 hours. So I've got my Tuesday call, and then that leaves me an hour before and a couple hours after, so what do? So I either book clients or, what am I doing in those times? I got to make sure I know before I start my day, I've got to finish it, meaning I've got to have all that time allocated with things. So if there's no clients in there, I've got to be putting in, okay, what else needs to get done today? What's the most important thing I need to do today from these 4 categories? And I want to make sure I kind of, in the empty spots, I'm going to be starting to make little dashes, bullet points in other words, and I'm going to start, putting stuff in there, do this, do that, do this. And that's going to allow me, so when I get off this call, like today, for instance, I don't have 2 clients after this. So I've got 2 hours of blank space. So instead of me just like getting off the call and being like, all right, well, I've got a few presents to wrap. I can, you know what I mean? I just got some food from the grocery store this morning. I can go have a nice lunch because I got food in my house. And next thing you know, it's time to go get my son. I know exactly what I'm doing because it's already filled in there and there's things I need to do. So I'm getting right back on that. And that's going to help keep me focused as I'm moving forward. I like to say this: our schedule is our boss. Our schedule is our boss. We've got to follow that schedule. We don't have a boss. Well, technically, we're the boss, right? As an entrepreneur. But sometimes we're a really bad boss because when you're the boss, if you will, well, you're the leader. So you can do what the heck you want. But in this case, we need an external guide. So when we set that schedule, and especially if we've got other people in our world, in our home, in our workspace, etc., we've got to be able to honor that schedule because we got to set those boundaries in order to create that space, and then we've got to make sure we honor that so we can honor the boundaries we've asked, hopefully politely, and they've agreed upon with those boundaries. So just think about this: the schedule is the boss. So now that I'm going to go into these four areas to kind of elaborate on them a little bit more, I want you to make sure that each and every day you finish it before you start it. You've got your business hours set aside. And I want to say, it doesn't matter if you're still got a job, let's say whether you're working part-time, full-time job, et cetera, still, how many responsibilities you have outside of that with spouse, with kids, with whatever. You've just got to make sure that you've set some side of time for your business. So if it's getting up 15 minutes earlier and then it gives you that 15, 20 minutes to get on, you can make a quick video. You could do a Facebook Live. Think about it. In 20 minutes, I could do a 10-minute Facebook Live. I could do some social media posts. I could write an email to my database. That's huge. How much more time do you need? And if you did that every day, 20 minutes, call it 30 minutes, if you're starting to get it off because you haven't done it before, right? And then as you get a little bit more proficient with it, the time gets shorter and shorter. Could you do that each and every morning? And then when you come home from work at night, could you have another 15, 20 minutes to kind of follow up and or, with any of those leads or comments or conversations that started as a result of that? Absolutely, right? So I want to give you an idea of this doesn't have to be, I've got to set aside, 6-7 hours every day. You might think, Jeff, you're working from 11 to 3. I can accomplish so much in those 4 hours, right? You don't need necessarily an 8-hour day. So actually in my email that I sent out to my email community this week, it was just kind of like, hey, so many coaches that I'm working with, they're like, hey, what else can I do? What else can I do? And it's like, you can only do so much. Just do it consistently each and every day. That's why I'm trying to show you that small bit of that, like a Facebook Live as an example, with an email and then that's huge. That's huge, right? So now we've got our time set aside. We've got that. We've got the boss, so to speak, set up, right? We've got the boss. So now what we got to do is we've got to figure out, all right, now we've got that. Let's break down these 4 different categories. So first category we're going to look at is our marketing time. And in this marketing time, think about your marketing as, remember I said, building our audience. So when it comes to marketing, our job is, it's 2 areas. One area is to get and attract new people to our audience. And then the second piece of it is to, with the people we have in our audience, is to stay in front of them and nurture that relationship, right? So those are the 2 areas. So when it comes to marketing ourselves, we got to ask ourselves, what am I doing, let's say on a daily basis, or at a minimum, several times a week, to get myself out in front of people? What am I doing to get myself out? When I say get myself out, it's mostly like, it's my message. Like, what is my message? What am I saying? All right, what am I saying to get myself out there? That's the biggest thing. And I like to think about it like this. I like to consider it education-based marketing. So education-based marketing meaning, what am I doing? Right? I'm sharing education with my audience, right? I share education with my audience and I help them, I teach them. And when I start to teach them, they start to learn, they start to see, hey, you know what? Jeff could help me. Wow, Jeff knows what he's doing. Jeff understands what I'm going through. Jeff's, let's say, been there and done that, in my case, as a mentor, right? But it's like they start to see that, wow, you can help them. And that's what that marketing is for you, is that education-based marketing. That's why I love these weekly live events, right? Like my Live Tuesday call, right? It's an opportunity for me to get out there, interact with my audience, but it's also an opportunity for me to educate my audience. And that's what I'm doing here. And that's what I want you to be able to do. So with your marketing activity, a lot of people think like, oh, selling and marketing, oh, I've got to do, I've got to sell, right? I got to sell my coaching. I got to sell my products. I send emails. I've got to be able to, I got to promote my products or anything that I have for sale. But I want you to think differently than that, right? I don't want your website to be all about you selling your coaching, and I say my business, right? Selling coaching, but we don't sell our coaching directly. The coaching's on the back end. What we do is we help people out from education, right? This education-based marketing, right? You help them out from teaching them, from talking. You do a 10-minute Facebook Live. You do a call like this, right? You do something, whether it's regular, ideally I say it's regular, so it's consistent. But either way, you're doing it on a weekly basis and you're recording it. So you're getting that out to your audience and then they start benefiting from that. And like I said earlier, they start to be like, wow, this person knows what they're doing. This person can really help me out. And that's really a space where we start to attract an audience. And the great part is, if you're doing some type of weekly event like I do here, is that allows you to actually be in front of them on a weekly basis because you've got a recurring event. And what that does from a marketing, as I said earlier, there's 2 phases to our marketing. The other phase to our marketing is not once we've attracted those people, then it's going to be actually allowing us to stay in front of those people and nurturing those relationships. And you're helping people out. And if you noticed, if you've been following me for a while, and I know some of you that are listening live, I know you have, and a lot of people that listen to the recordings, is I'm a big fan of giving a lot away. I'm a big fan of giving a lot of valuable things away because my biggest pet peeve was coming into this industry as I help coaches transition to a full-time business was that there's just a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of fluff out there. There's a lot of just like, let me tease you a little bit, but give you nothing, and let me bring you in, and let me just give you just a little bit more, and then let me upsell you to a $10,000 program, right? So, okay, it can work, but what I've noticed is, and what I want to teach you is that you can give some great stuff away. You can give a lot of valuable stuff away. It does not hurt your other end in terms of your coaching in that business because yes, you're helping people pretty specifically, but the value in working with you as a coach or me with a mentor as an example, right, is that everything we do now it's tailored specifically to you. You can still give people instructions on, how to do X, Y, and Z, but then when you come down to it, some of them are going to take it and they're going to run with it. Fantastic, great. Have a blast, right? Like, congratulations, right? They're still going to be huge fans of yours because they're helping you, right? And at some point, they're going to come to a point where they do need some help or they need to go to the next level. And you were the person that helped get them there, and you probably don't even know it because of your great education, right? But even then, there's still going to be a lot of people that even though you tell them how to do it, in general, or like talking about some of the things that I'm talking about, like today as an example, right? They understand it logically in their head, but then when it comes time to do it, it's hard, or they can't work through it, or they still have a lot of questions, right? And so that leads to you working with them one-on-one, or maybe in groups, or whatever other programs that you offer. So that's why I say with this first component of our marketing activities that we're looking at this is the type of education that I want you to be doing, is getting yourself out there and sharing some great information. I happen to do an hour call, at the end of the day, between start and finish conversation. It turns out to like a 35, 40 minute, the most usually, of content, which is typically a much longer. But remember, with content, the more detail you go, it warrants a longer piece of content. If I had 40 minutes and it was just general fluff, you're not going to get through it. You're not going to want to listen to it. But when you get the reputation and you start really giving some good details, you can go longer with your content, and you can get people that will listen to it. So that's the aspect of our marketing activities. So in terms of marketing activities, these are obviously one of, if not the most important activities in our business day. Because as I've said, our number one job is to grow an audience, and then of course nurture that audience. Then it would be conceivable to say, well, how do we do that? Okay, our marketing activities, right? So that's the number one thing. So on a daily basis, that's going to be in your schedule. So if you notice when I said, hey, even if you've got 15, 20 minutes, and then maybe that's all you've got on a given day, maybe it's 10 minutes. What's the one thing I'm doing? It's going to be a marketing activity. Like I said, hey, could I do a 10-minute Facebook Live? Hey, could I do a 5-minute Facebook Live? Could I write an email to my audience? Even if I don't have much of an audience, maybe it's just friends and family to start off with that I've uploaded to my Aweber or a client relationship type management account. There's like a Constant Contact, Aweber, which I recommend. A MailChimp, something like that. I'm just trying to say some names you might have heard of before, right? So I upload my friends and family, and even if I'm just starting to do it, email them. Can I send an email out, and can I do like a 5-minute Facebook Live, and then maybe that becomes the topic of my email? Hey, I just did this live broadcast, live show. Click here to check it out, and maybe you send that over to a Facebook group, and then they've got to click to join, and that's some form of lead capture. Plus, you've got them in your audience, and you start interacting with them, and you're getting your message out there, right? That's a marketing activity, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Is at a minimum, that's what we need to have on a daily basis, something like that. The second activity that I started to go through was our follow-up activities, right? And following up is, when I say this, is equally as important as our marketing activities. Because this is the portion where now I've done my marketing activities. Well, now as a result of what I did, I'm hopefully stirring up some comments, some interaction with my audience or the audience that hopefully will become my audience. So what I've got to do now is I've got to follow up on those things. And following up doesn't mean like, oh, I'm following up exactly because someone emailed me back or someone asked me a question directly. Yes, that's following up, absolutely. What I also mean following up is it's creating the interactions. Earlier I talked about I received an email or a notification from YouTube that someone made a comment on a video I did, I think it was a couple years back, right? So I followed up with him, right? He just made a comment, right? And he said, hey, great job, or thanks so much, right? And so I just went in there and I said, hey, great, you're welcome, glad you enjoyed this. Tell me a little bit more about your business and what you're doing. I'd love to know, or I'm curious to know more about your business, right? So that's me following up. But if you notice when I follow up, it's not just like, hey, thanks so much, glad you liked it. It's I ask a question. That's me following up to create an engagement, right? So these are our follow-up activities. These are vitally important and equally as important as our marketing activities, because this is what's going to lead us towards business, right? And this is the piece where we've got to, these are what I would call these sales conversations, right? So when you guys hear me talk about like, my new program, Live Sales Conversations, where I'm helping coaches convert their leads to paying clients, right? There's a huge need for this because, again, these are, remember I said earlier, our top activities each and every day that we need to prioritize. Often these are the things that we are challenged with the most, right? And that's, getting our message out there. That's hard for a lot of people, especially when you don't know what your message is or haven't narrowed it down yet. And then it's following up and having these conversations, right? So how do we have these conversations? What do I say? That's why I do that Live Sales Conversations program. Check that out, livesalesconversations.com. Learn more about that, right? But either way, that's the second piece. This is the marketing activities, and then this is the follow-up activities. So making sure that as you're doing more and more of your daily marketing activities, okay, you've got to set some time aside to follow up. And just know this, what happens is, as we get into this third category of our client activities, once we start doing the first two consistently and we start getting more clients, or we start getting more business, whatever, is starting to consume you once you're getting paid, typically what happens is the activities that suffer the most are our marketing and our follow-up activities. So now let's say I'm really busy because I've been marketing and following up, and now I've got a full load of clients. Well, now all of a sudden, I, not even necessarily purposely, but I slack off, or I don't become as consistent on my marketing and following up activities. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a period of like, wow, this is great, I'm getting paid, I've got clients, this is great. But then all of a sudden, okay, I just finished up with this client, I finished up with that client, this is done, this stops. And all of a sudden, it's just like, you look at your calendar and it's like, I have no clients. What's going on? And all of a sudden, oh man, I got to go back to those marketing and following up activities, right? So ideally, what we're doing is we're creating a schedule where we can be consistent no matter how busy we get with our client activities. And by client activities, I mean it's actual coaching clients that we have, paid clients, maybe complimentary sessions if we're doing those, discovery calls, whatever you call them, right? And then other client activities are, when I say following up with clients, answering questions, that's I don't consider that a follow-up activity. I consider that just, those are client activities. That's me servicing my clients. That's me answering questions, being there for them, in between our calls type of thing, right? So that's that space. And so it's never hard to have client activities in the sense of like prioritizing them, right? Because when have you ever just like had a client and blown it off? Like, oh, I don't feel like taking them today, right? Like if you got a client, it's the best thing in the world. Like you show up and they show up and you know what you're doing for the hour or however long your session is. So the great part is when we say prioritizing our daily activities is we don't have to prioritize our client activities. It's not hard to get back to a client other than, if you've got a lot going on, it might be like, oh, I've got to make sure I fit this in because you want to get back to them on a timely basis. But client activities, I don't have to say we don't ever have to prioritize them because they're just like, we do them because now this is the best part. This is what we want. We want to have clients. We want to work with them. All right. Just make sure though, when you've got more and more of them, that you have the consistency and the structure set up for your marketing activities. That's why when I talked earlier about with my weekly live event and that marketing structure that I set up, help my one-on-one clients set up, is that's why I do that, is because right now they might have all the time in the world because they're starting off. They don't have any clients, let's say, or maybe just a few. But once they start doing them consistently, they get a client, they get another client, they're hopefully ideally going to get to that place where they've got more clients and more work there than time. And now, since they've been set the structure up and they know what to do for that marketing activities, at a minimum, if they do that each and every week, that's when, guess what? You know what? They don't ever slack off on those, and therefore they've got a consistent leads coming in, and that leads to consistent clients, and it just creates a more stable business, right? It just creates a more stable business. And if that's something you need help with, consider talking to me, like I said earlier, at the Work With Me page on sellingcoaching.com, because that's something you need to have set up in your business, that marketing structure, again, for that consistency. So those are our client activities. And then the fourth of our four activities is our admin activities, right? And so from an admin perspective, that's anything from invoicing, it's accounting, it's scheduling, it's website stuff, it's posting your blog, it's editing the call to get it up there. I mean, any of these things, in the beginning, especially of our business, there's like, oh, I've got to get my website going, I've got to get my free offer done, I've got to get onto like I said, Aweber, get my email list going, get that free offer set up, the logistics, some of that stuff. So sometimes in the beginning, it can feel like the admin time is, let's say, a lot greater. But ultimately, you want to make sure that, hey, if I need to, like, let's say I'm going to invoice a client, right? I invoice, as soon as I invoice, I'm ready to invoice, I do it right away because I want to get that out there because I want to get paid. If I'm talking about like maybe a corporate client of mine that I don't charge ahead of time, I just invoice them every month based on how many hours we've done that month, right? Or something like that. But otherwise, I'm only doing those activities when they need to be done. For instance, with my Live Tuesday calls, on Friday is when I send the email out and post in social media that, hey, the call recording is available. So I know by Friday at some point before I'm done with my work hours, I got to make sure that that call is edited, posted on YouTube, on my university, ready to go, so I can post it in my Facebook, profiles, group, page, and then also send an email to my audience with that in there, right? So that gives me a time frame for that. So that's admin stuff. So all I do is I make sure I look. Usually I do it on a Thursday or Friday, and I look for any space that I have, and I go, hey, when can I kind of block off, and it usually takes me a good, I'd say about 30 minutes for the whole thing to do, minus editing time for the computer to process it, right? So it takes about 30 minutes to do that. Okay, what's the 30-minute block I have that I'm going to block off, on that Friday or maybe that Thursday, depending on what my Friday already looks like, right? So that's my admin time. So I got to make sure that that stuff gets done. But again, having that structure allows me to know when each week are those general admin times and what I have to do. And so that's a piece right there. But your admin time should just be a very small percentage of what you're doing. In the beginning, the biggest percentage of your time is going to be the marketing and the follow-up time. That could be 90% of your efforts, and then maybe the 10% is the admin stuff in terms of just getting everything ready to go. But other than that, once you start getting clients in there, even your client time, like even me, a full week of clients, that's at the most maybe like 40% of my time, and that's a busy week, right? If it's a busy week like that, but usually I try and keep it. I'd rather have it like closer to like a 30% of my week. And I want to get that other maybe 10% at the most is admin time, and that leaves a good, let's say, 60% for marketing and follow-up. So the majority of our business is going to always be marketing and follow-up, those first two, big activities. So I want you to be thinking about that. And whatever your 100% is, right? So my 100% on an average week, it's about a 30-hour work week, right? Yours, depending on where you're at, it might be 20 hours. Maybe you've got a full-time job still, so you've got let's call it a 6-hour work week for your business. And remember I said earlier, I'll give you some rough percentages and rough numbers, right? So don't hold me to those exact numbers because they're going to flex a little bit. But if you're saying, when you're starting off, 60 to 90% is your marketing activities. Okay, well, if you've got, 6 hours, heck, let's make it easy, 10 hours in a week, hey, 6 to 9 of those hours you want for those marketing activities. And that's a lot, honestly. I don't know if I could spend that actually, getting content out there, where a lot of my time now is a lot of that follow-up stuff and creating that follow-up from the activities that I do. But so just give you an idea of kind of where you can go with some of those times is really important. And again, having that schedule is vital because that's going to be your boss, like I said, and that's going to allow you to get to that space where you know what you're doing every day and that guides you.